4 levels of abstraction in politics and psychology. Let's examine the differences between edification, confidence building, and the stereotypical ideology of one being able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. The ongoing contention seems to circle around the following logic chains. Life is hard and we all have our particular struggles. Some are harder than others, but we all have to suck it up and pull ourselves up our bootstraps. To which the liberal, social worker, or more compassionate individual will reply, but people have to have boots in the first place to be able to pull themselves up by. To which the conservative, heavily logical traditionalist or encouragement-focused guru will reply, then they must look around for supplies to fashion themselves boots. So, go to a factory and get some rubber to put on the bottom of a boot, go to a textile mill to get some extra textiles and fabric to make a boot out of, and find some bootstraps on an old abandoned pair of shoes and make some yourself. Of course, this is where the conservative lands their thinking, neglecting a possible fourth perspective. The individual needs to be taught how to make boots in the first place. This is where Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes in. This is where the determinism rears its ugly head, and this is also where we need to see the logical fallacy of the false equivalence. This is where we equate all brains to being the same, and we falsely equivocate in this way. We falsely equate all brains to having a equal capacity to be able to just suddenly know how to do things. And that's not how brains work. Brains are highly malleable, and their simple systems and functionality are highly dictated by external means. An individual growing up in a drug-filled neighborhood will unknowingly see drugs as the least resistant path towards forging a dependable source of income and make subsequent decisions. So this is where the politics comes into play with psychology today, in the United States in particular. If a child is not taught how to wield their brain and their mind of their own volition, they're not going to suddenly happen upon the mindfulness and self-awareness necessary to problem solve for the problem of building bootstraps. So the conservative ideologist or the self-help guru, or whatever you want to call it, the over-enthusiastic therapist that only goes towards the self-help realm, will try to encourage people to form this kind of emotional resilience in the way that it's not so much emotional vocabulary or granularity, as Lisa Feldman Barrett puts it. It's more like, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, and just that attitude and relentless confidence building, which is unrealistic, but very much necessary. And so the more compassionate left-leaning psychologist or psychotherapist or a psychiatrist in particular will lean towards the idea of encouraging empathy and trying to accommodate and affirm the suffering of the individual. We have these terms called affirmation and validation. We want people to know that their suffering is valid. These are very useful terms, but unfortunately they can be taken too far. Both of these sides can do this way too much. And so we're not examining the nuance in psychotherapy between these two methods, unfortunately, it seems. And I've taken classes, like a lot of the classes that I've taken online from various countries to get the certifications I have in cognitive behavioral therapy, REBT and ACT, they have had their biases. Like I've noticed this, where some counselors will be very much over-enthusiastic and in the self-help guru park, where people can just help themselves out of anything and not need to seek any kind of medication and not need to seek therapy for trauma, like genuine, just ignoring the concept of real impacting trauma and the many ways that trauma can arise within different cultures. That's another thing that goes wildly unignored, especially in the West. And then there's also I have to be really careful with the terminology here, but like overly compassionate or not encouraging the self-help enough. Like one way to do this is to encourage self-help way too much, and another way to do this is to neglect it. And I'm trying to find that nuance there. I'm trying to, this is what psychology has been trying to do for years, for decades, is to find that nuance. And unfortunately, what I've noticed from studying multiple cultures now and multiple forms of therapy across the world is that the United States seems to have this bias that's going on towards the more, I don't want to say left-leaning, but that I'm trying to draw the parallels with politics here, and I do kind of see that, where it's encouraging the respect of people's suffering, which is good, and encouraging the acknowledgement and affirmation and validating people's suffering to their detriment, or to the point that we're having parents come in and sign off for children to make permanent changes that they can't make those decisions, or way too early in life to make those kind of decisions. That's one example, kind of extreme, also way overused by the conservative right. There's small examples of that get way over exaggerated in the media, I believe. But that's one way that this happens. Another way is just the misattribution of diagnostic criteria, and this is what I'm writing about in the book. Unfortunately, is what I call the diagnostic default, the tendency to default to diagnostic terminology to describe everyday conditions, and just the variations on the way that brains can be in the world. And this is one of the responses I get when I talk about this, is that ADHD is just another way to describe how brains can be. Autism is just a different way of being. That's right. Then why does it have to earn this moniker of diagnostic terminology? Why do we need to introduce these labels out into the public? And so the conclusion that I'm coming to is that what we're seeing in the United States in particular is the tendency for the psychotherapist to succumb to the diagnostic default and provide way too many labels, and to use the DSM-5 as a Bible, as the term goes, like the Bible of psychology and all that, and try to find these specific criteria in this one way of viewing the human condition. And now we have over 560 diagnostic terms to try to label and categorize people by. And then there's so much good in that too, and that's unfortunate because we're trying to do good by this. And this just results in the patient acquiring those labels as monikers and then running with that throughout their life, and then that's what they are beholden to. So the patient also succumbs to the diagnostic default, defaulting to describing any of their woes and any of the challenges that they may naturally encounter in a normal human life as being due to this diagnostic label. So this is where we're at currently. I hope I'm wrong. I openly welcome your criticism in this regard, and I'd really like to try and resolve this however possible. Follow me for more. Hopefully we can resolve this.